The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network. It's time for the ODU Wrestling Monarch Matcast, a show dedicated to all things related to the Old Dominion Wrestling program. On the web at monarchmatcast.com. Now, here's your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, and 2004 ODU alumnus, Jason Bryant.
Episode 44 of the Old Dominion Monarch Matcast. Jason Bryant here with you as we head towards another season of Monarch Wrestling, but wrapping up season 3 of this particular program. Coach Mike Dixon, Associate Head Wrestling Coach at Old Dominion, joining us. Third straight episode, Dixon. It's been here, there, and everywhere. The last time we talked, you were recruiting in Fargo, checking out the action, and that was in mid-July. And you've actually had a lot of time to enjoy the Chicago Cubs' success again this year. Before we talk about wrestling, I mean, how much have you been enjoying flying the W?
They've been doing a lot more second half of the season than first half, although I tried to stay up last night to hopefully watch them clinch, but that did not happen. So we'll have to watch the Cubs game again tonight against the evil St. Louis Cardinals, and hopefully they can clinch and get some people healthy.
Yeah, as an Angels fan, living in Minnesota, the Twins and Angels are battling on the AL side for that last wild card berth, and it's like, oh, could you have collapsed any more? It's painful to be an Angels fan, but at least I can say my wife's happy with the Twins, at least in the running to get that last spot. But we didn't come here to talk about baseball. Say what?
I said Twins are doing well. Twins are doing well.
Yeah, not bad after they lost 100 games last year. But that's you know all about that being a Cubs fan, right?
Yes. It's been a long, torturous process, but finally in October, I did not get much sleep last October because I watched every playoff game.
Yes, and we can say that Dixon is not a bandwagon Cubs fan. Ever since I met him years ago, he has been rocking the Cubs, even though some years he wants to hide the hat. He proudly represents the Chicago Cubs, so I'll give that to you.
I was born in Naperville, Illinois, so, loud and proud Cubs fan, fly the W.
Yeah, being born in Newport News, I don't really know why I'm an Angels fan. Actually, I know why, but it's not really important for this show. Everybody listening here should be, at least in some semblance, some way, shape, or form, an Old Dominion Wrestling Monarchs fan. And as we talked to Coach Dixon today about the schedule, which was recently released, and our Monarch Day of Giving, which is coming up on October 6th. And Coach Dixon, why don't you just tell us a little about what the Monarch Day of Giving is, and maybe where you perceive the idea from and how this is going to help Old Dominion Wrestling.
Yeah, it's October the 6th, like you mentioned. It's a day where we, any constituent, alumni, fan of the program, it's an opportunity. You can kind of help the program raise some money so we can continue to do some of the things we can do to help support student athletes. As far as where he got the idea from, kind of stole the idea a little bit from our women's soccer coaches, and in combination with Coach Rob Cole over at Cornell. I've, talked with him a couple times. They do something similar, but basically on October the 6th, our guys are going to be on the phone, making a bunch of phone calls. We all have a list of people that we're going to be calling and kind of giving, I guess you could say, our little spiel, but hopefully our goal is to try and get at least 200 gifts for our program. And the size of the gift does not matter. Obviously the bigger the better, of course, but if people can only give 10 or 20 bucks, those go a long way too. And our goal is, if we can get a bunch of gifts like that, if we can get at least 200 gifts, then I think we're going to have a significant impact on our program to be able to continue to travel, to continue to be in the Mid-American Conference, to be able to continue to recruit quality student athletes, as well as help the overall student athlete experience with things that they need kind of outside of outside of what our budget can provide for them. And we want to be able to make this as the college experience as enjoyable of an experience as possible. And probably over the next week or so over social media, one of our alumni has actually come up with some videos that we'll be pushing out to kind of help promote that. But you should start seeing those over the next week or so. But it's just a day for if you've had any stake in ODU wrestling or you just want to see a program succeed, just a day to kind of hopefully open up the pocketbook a little bit and kind of give what you have.
Also of note, the Alumni Day or the Alumni Weekend, which has typically been on the front end of the schedule, that's going to be moved back to January this year. We'll talk a little bit about that weekend. That'll be January 21st against American. That's a Sunday. So instead of going boom boom with football and a high-powered team like Missouri, which is coming in past years for Alumni Day, it's moved to the 21st. We'll talk about that as we get through the schedule, but just putting that out there in case you're wondering. First thing on the schedule will be the Blue-Silver Inter-Squad at the Jarrett Athletic Building, October 24th. And the Inter-Squad, this has become an event. It's become another home event. And, what are the benefits of hosting an Inter-Squad for the fans and for the program?
I get, like this year, a third of our team are freshmen. We got 12 new faces on our team. I say freshmen, but we also have probably the oldest wrestler in the country, in Caleb Richardson, in our program. But
outside of the kids at Utah Valley, of course.
Well, yeah.
Draw that comparison on your own, folks.
But Caleb is actually older than Coach Chris McCarty, which they pointed that out last week. But it gives an opportunity for fans to kind of see what's new, how guys that maybe weren't in the lineup last year, how they've improved. And, hopefully we see a lot of positive things, from a coaching perspective. We're basically just looking for guys to how they perform under the lights when there is a crowd, a referee, you got a 1 hour weigh-in, and you're trying to mimic as much of a real competition atmosphere as possible. How do guys perform? And we're just trying to basically study that and see, okay, what are these tendencies here? What do we need to work on? Are these guys too amped up? Are they not, not ready to go? Are they executing? Are they on their leg attacks? Are they hitting setups? That's what we're looking for as a coach's perspective. But for the fans, it gives us kind of a good preview of kind of what to expect. And like I said, we're in a situation where we've got 36 hungry guys, but none of them are ranked. None of them really have any credentials. So it's kind of, we're starting at the bottom, and we're going to work our way up and see where we end up in March.
Schedule-wise, you're keeping the Southeast Open, which is an event hosted by Virginia Tech in Roanoke, however. That was a quality event last year. We saw some guys break through with some solid wins there. What is it about that event says, we're keeping this bad boy on the schedule?
It's close. It's drivable distance. It's a lot of good competition. You got a lot of your ACC teams. I know, I think last year you had a lot of Ivy League schools come down. Now I know Princeton, I believe, is hosting an event this year, so I don't know what the term is going to look like, but it's just a lot of good quality competition that, we don't have to travel too far for. And we have a local kid that's actually from Roanoke, Virginia, so it's actually a good time for his friends and family to come watch him wrestle and kind of make his debut on the mat. But Virginia Tech, they've had a top 10 program the last several years, so it's a chance for some of our guys to test themselves very early. You get a chance to see some All-Americans and kind of see where you stand, and obviously go back to the drawing board if you're not where you're at. But we like wrestling the ACC schools. We like wrestling up and down the East Coast, and that's what we'll get a lot of. And we're just looking forward to that event.
Something new on the schedule, November 12th, a Monarch Classic, as it's called. That'll be at the Jarrett Athletic Building because apparently there's everything and its mother going on campus that weekend. But Northwestern from the Big Ten, Gardner Webb from the Southern Conference coming in. Explain the dynamic of that little tri-meet.
Yeah, we were actually trying to get a third team in, but things didn't work out this year. But, in the future, we're trying to make this an annual event where we host a quad meet where everybody can get 3 matches in. And, our purpose was an opportunity for our guys to get multiple matches in, but not have the wear and tear of what an open tournament does to you. Open tournaments do have its benefits because you can get a lot more of your guys wrestling, but at the same time, we kind of want a dual meet event, but where our guys can get multiple matches in, kind of be a little bit cost effective for us too by hosting it at home. Since Matt Stoyno took over the job at Northwestern, he's always wanted to come back out here. So this is something that's kind of been in the works for a couple of years, and things worked out in both our guys' schedules this year. So I was able to get a Big Ten team in, and he's got a young, hungry squad as well. So I think it worked out perfectly where we can get a matchup with a good quality Big Ten program. Our guys can test themselves out, kind of see where they stand. Gardner Webb, I knew Coach Elliott for a while. He runs a very, very solid program. He's got a lot of good kids in his program, and they're at events like the Southeast Open. So it could be a situation where we're seeing some of their guys 2 weeks in a row, but there's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, those Gardner Webb kids, they're well prepared and they're going to wrestle hard. So, we'll see where we're at, and it's a good opportunity for us to get a couple matches in. And again, our whole goal, especially with that early November scheduling, is just experience, just trying to get our guys as much mat time as possible, because we got a lot of young guys that they don't quite have the experience that in past years some of our older guys have had. So we need matches, and that was our goal in November, is to try and get as much matches in as possible.
Well, last year, I think it was at some point, 6 freshmen in the lineup, whether they be red shirts or true freshmen. So you still got a lot of youth in the lineup. How much is that youth expected to mature? You got a lot of sophomores in the lineup potentially if they win the spots. I mean, that second year mat time, how important is that? And how important did that mindset go into building the schedule the way it is?
I think it's very important, because a lot of these guys have a year under their belt, so they kind of know, okay, this is what a season's like, this is what dual meets are like, this is what it feels like after a 1 hour weigh-in. And then they've had a chance to actually, over the course of the summer, okay, here are the things I struggle with, and basically write down, here are specific things, here are the 10 or 12 things I really need to develop and get better at over the course of the summer, so that next year these are no longer weaknesses we're buying, or, in fact, these are now strengths, And like I said, most of our guys, they were here over the summer, they were here training, they're hungry, and I have seen a lot of jump in a lot of guys, and Coach McCarty, he's raved about a lot of the guys because he's seen them jump himself. And, Daryl Thomas is new. But he's been very pleased with at least the work ethic and progress of a lot of the guys in our room, especially this young group of freshmen that we do have right now. They're all hard workers, so that's one thing we do like. They come in, even on off days. You'll see, like, today's an off day for us. You'll see probably at least 2/3 of the team coming in and working out on their own, just because they're hungry and they want to be good. So these guys have high goals, and our job is to make sure we kind of provide those resources for them and make sure we're there for them and do what we need to do so that they can actually compete and go out and line up and, kind of do some things. So, we're looking for some good things, and, hopefully as the season goes along, we're going to get better and better.
Couple tournament weekends as we head into mid-November and late December. Wolfpack Open and Navy Classic, split weekend starters. I'm assuming Navy Classic, red shirts and reserves to the Wolfpack Open. Kind of the same thing with the Midlands weekend and the Lock Haven Classic. But Navy Classic, that's a new one on the schedule for the Monarchs, and a team invitational tournament. You've got team scoring here. You've got abilities for multiple entries. What is it about the Navy Classic that was alluring for Old Dominion this year?
Actually, last year was our first year up in Annapolis. I love that town. And this year it was their turn to come down to us. So, but I personally, I was like, I got to find a way to get back up there. So that weekend actually just fit with us. And, I talked to a couple of their coaches in terms of who's coming out there, and they have a couple Big Ten teams there. They got a Pac-12 team coming out. They got a few Ivy League schools in there. I think there are a couple MAC teams. So they have a good variety and a good mix of teams. And like I said, Oregon State is coming out there, and that's a team that we otherwise would not see throughout the season. but it's also good to, get some of that West Coast feel. So that was kind of a tournament that kind of worked well with us, fit in our schedule. And like I said, I loved Annapolis, but it's from what I've heard, it's a well-run tournament. You get done in a reasonable amount of time, and again, it's all about getting our guys competition matches, and we can take up to 20 athletes to compete there. So, at least 2/3 of our team is going to be able to compete. And like I said, anybody else that can't compete in that, just 3 hours down the road, you've got in NC State, the Wolfpack Open, which they do a good job with their tournament as well.
Closing out the dual meet portion of November and the beginning of December, NC State, Missouri, two of the higher ranked teams on the schedule. Good relationship down there with Pat Popolizio and his staff at NC State. I know the guys have gone back and forth at training at the Virginia Beach RTC and then the Wolfpack RTC. They've made a monster push into the top 10 the last couple of years. Of course, Missouri been there for the last 15 years, it seems. These two teams on the schedule, big draws, big opponents. What are the kids going to learn from matchups like this?
Yeah, and again, it's just more of a kind of status. Here's where you're at. This is where you stand. Now, what's good and kind of what you mentioned before is our guys, they train with the NC State guys during the summer. So, we have a lot of respect for both programs. But they got a feel for some of those NC State guys, to kind of see where they're at this summer. Again, it's just kind of putting in hard work and test yourself. And, they got some heavy hitters, but I think they viewed, they saw through the practice and training sessions that we had together that, their guys aren't that different than ours. Right now they just got a little bit more experience and they've got some more credentials because they've done something. But, like I told our team a couple of days ago, I said at some point everybody was in the boat where you haven't beaten anybody, but at some point you got to go out and do something that you're not expected to do, and this is their opportunity to basically go out and all of a sudden, whether you're wrestling a Kevin Jack or, whoever else they're going to have ranked in the top 10, Pete Renda, at some point, somebody's got to go out and beat those guys. Why can't it be you? Why can't it be you? You've seen how they've trained. You've seen how we train. It's pretty similar. Just go out and get it done. And then, once you get a confidence builder like that, where you've got a kind of, I guess you could call it a notch in your belt, where all of a sudden I beat a returning All-American, then all of a sudden it's, hey, I can do this. I know I can do this. And then all of a sudden your training kind of gets elevated to the next level. And that's kind of what we're looking for. Because I think that is right after that swing, I think we got a little break for finals and all that stuff. So then we can regroup. And if guys need to take a little bit of time off, there's opportunities for that. But, that's going to be a heavy weekend on our schedule. But our guys, they will be prepared for the challenge.
Now, look, Northern Illinois comes in for the duel December 19th. That's a home single duel, as you said, after finals and the semester's rolling in. Then moving into the Christmas break, again, the backups and the red shirts pretty much out to Lock Haven. Midlands can carry as many as 15. And I made this mistake last year about the Midlands. This year, it's going to be correct. This is at the Sears Center in Hoffman Estates, not at Northwestern this year. So last year, I got ahead of myself because of the construction there on campus. But the Midlands, that's an event that, ODU's had an opportunity to have its wrestlers show up on the Big Ten Network. Television-wise, obviously you mentioned the relationship with former assistant and now current head coach at Northwestern, Matt Storniolo. The Midlands will close out the calendar year. This is always something you got to circle on your calendar, especially being a Cubs fan.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to be up in Chicago, but that we will kind of do Midlands on a case-by-case basis based on kind of how our guys are doing. But I will tell you the majority of our team is actually probably going to go to that Lock Haven Classic in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. And then, we will kind of take Midlands on a case-by-case basis as to who we feel is ready and prepared for that. Because, like I said, our team's very young. And we want to make sure we're putting our guys in the best possible scenario where they can succeed. In years past, we've had Midlands champions. We've had people that have done very, very, very well. And, it's just a situation where we're going to take it on a case-by-case basis. But the Lock Haven Classic, it's got some decent teams like George Mason. Lock Haven's actually be pretty loaded this year, to be honest with you. But, we're going to take it on a case-by-case basis and see where it goes.
Now, month of January, this is like a heavy home feel. So those Monarchs in Hampton Roads are going to have an opportunity to see a lot of Old Dominion wrestling at the TED and, of course, at the Hampton Coliseum. Eastern Michigan comes in the 7th, the Virginia duels the following weekend, a trip to Buffalo, and then, boom, home duels, American on the 21st, Virginia on the 28th, Navy on the 2nd of February. Central Michigan comes in on February 4th. That's a good boom. A lot of home action here, a lot of opportunities to see the Monarchs who traditionally wrestle better at home than on the road. I guess that's normal. But how much do you think that could potentially help momentum going into the close of the season?
Well, at that time of year, every wrestler kind of knows those, as you call it, those January blues. Where it's right after Christmas, and all of a sudden, the competition amps up, and especially dealing with travel, and you're traveling with cold weather cities. So staying home for a good stretch in January, I think, is going to be beneficial to our guys. With all the weigh-ins we have in January, we got Eastern Michigan at home. Hampton, you got, or for the Virginia duels, you got 2 weigh-ins, and then you got a lot of weekends where it's a Friday, Sunday type situation. That's where we want to make sure our guys are on point with their diets, making sure they're doing everything right. And we've actually contracted with a sports nutritionist this year, where all our guys actually have specific meal plans per individual. So that's something new we've implemented this year, and guys have already started to see some change in their bodies. So we had to go to an expert to kind of help the guys in terms of making sure they're doing everything right. Because, like I told them, I said, our job is to give you as many resources as possible to make sure that you are in the best possible position to succeed. So in that January grind where you're having multiple weigh-ins, as long as our guys are doing everything right, hopefully they're going to have an advantage because they're eating right, they're getting their sleep, and all that stuff. But, it's a big month where guys can kind of make gains and, like you said, get on a roll going into February, because when February rolls around, you got a few more dual meets, and all of a sudden it's, conference season or conference tournament time. So hopefully that's kind of a stretch where we are starting to separate ourselves within our league, as well as some guys are hopefully stepping up nationally.
Yeah, I mentioned American on the 21st earlier as far as that being alumni weekend. University of Virginia back on the schedule this year. There's always been a healthy dialogue, so to speak, between Coach Garland and Coach Martin. So expect some festivities as always when UVA and ODU mix it up. And then Navy comes back to town. And I remember talking with Navy assistant coach Nate Engel a couple years ago after the first time Navy came back down and said, "Yeah, dude, it was like a home duel for us." And well, yeah, kind of. But what's it mean to get Virginia and Navy on the schedule and dual meets at home?
I think those are 2 big draws for a crowd. And like I said, when we wrestled Navy a couple of years ago, I think we had a fantastic draw. We've already talked to military liaison on campus about trying to make sure we get even a bigger crowd, and hopefully, obviously, we can get a few more ODU people out for that. And obviously, UVA is big. They're going to have a lot of alumni in the area. So when we put teams like that on the schedule, we are aware that there will be some people rooting for the other team. But I think it's just a good atmosphere. It's a good environment. And when our guys are in front of a loud cheering crowd, we'd like to think our guys kind of step up to the plate and kind of handle business. And, it kind of helps get you ready for the conference tournament and for NCAAs when you're wrestling in front of larger crowds and all the stuff like that. And, you obviously have to be prepared, and you have to be able to compete at a high level when you got several thousand people watching. And those 2 teams we know are going to put butts in the seats, which is, why I like to put teams like that on the schedule. And hopefully, it is a lot more positive for us than negative.
Closing out the home schedule on February 4th again with Central Michigan, a team that ODU has developed a healthy rivalry with, along with Kent State, which you hit the road on the 9th of February, close it out with another trip right across the state to Athens, Ohio for Ohio U before closing out the schedule against Duke on February 17th. I'm noticing a lot of teams that National Duels weekend, which doesn't exist this year, I have seen a lot of super good non-conference dynamic dual meets that last weekend of the regular season. And Glenn Lanham doing a good job at rebuilding the Duke program. Why is Duke on the schedule, and why is that an optimal weekend for a non-conference foe going into the postseason?
Like I said, Duke it's another program. Ever since Glenn's taken over, they've done great things. Obviously Casper was kind of their headliner, and he's back for another season.
Funny guy,
but he is a character all his own. But their program, they beat us last year. So now it's our turn to go down there to Durham, and hopefully we can. What they did to us, hopefully we can do to them. Our guys, we felt like they missed out on an opportunity when we wrestled them at home. But, new year, we're going to have to see what happens. But, again, I think that's one of those rivalries that I think we can develop into something good. We occasionally will recruit some of the same kids. But they do a good job with their program, and we like to put teams on our schedule that we know are going to help take our guys to the next level. And Duke is one of those programs.
MAC championships at Central Michigan this year, but one thing that did happen over the course of the offseason is Northern Iowa, which joined the MAC with Old Dominion and Missouri as an affiliate a couple years ago. They have jumped ship as far as their affiliate agreement being over. They're now in the Big 12. Unfortunately, you lose a team like Northern Iowa, which is building, but SIUE will come in next year. Dynamic of the MAC, how's that impact things for you?
Northern Iowa probably has a little bit more history and tradition. Obviously, they've been, I guess you could call it a staple in wrestling, especially in Division I for a long, long time. And Southern Illinois for years had been a D2 program, but they moved up to Division I, several years ago. And since Spate's taken over, he's kind of progressively moved that program up. And they had their first All-American in however many years last year. And Spates is a good coach. He comes from that breed. His father was a coach. He wrestled for Brian Smith at Missouri, so we know his teams will be very, very well prepared. We actually tried to get them on the schedule this year. It just didn't work out, because when teams jump in, I kind of like to make sure we at least kind of get prepared for what type of style that they're going to be. But I think they're going to be pretty similar to kind of what Missouri is. But, as far as what it changes the dynamics for the conference, I don't think it's going to change it that much. Obviously, like I said, Northern Iowa probably had a lot more star power, if you will. But I think Southern Illinois will be a great addition to the conference, and I don't think you're going to see much of a drop-off, if any at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, again, the MAC championships, March 3rd and 4th, Mount Pleasant. NCAAs this year in Cleveland. 18 in Cleveland, 19 in Pittsburgh, 20 here in Minnesota. So we'll talk about that. And as the goal is March, we'll follow up on future episodes. But once again, inter-squad match, October 24th. And before we even get to that, the day of giving, October 6th. So keep an eye out on social media at ODU Wrestling for information on that and ODUsports.com. Last thing I want to mention, this is something I didn't preface Coach Dixon with, but November 4th weekend, the Old Dominion Sports Hall of Fame inducts a class that's coming in, including one of my old roommates, four-time NCAA qualifier Jeff Rusak from the class of, let's see, we came in 97. Oh, yeah, 02. I should have been 01, but I ended up graduating 04 anyway. But a wrestler part of that group. What's it mean for a wrestler to go into the Sports Hall of Fame at Old Dominion?
I think it just shows the great, proud history and tradition that wrestling is part of this university and part of this community. I think Dr. Seelig talks about there's 32 individual national championships, and he's a firm believer that the next national champion is going to come over in wrestling. We have several All-Americans in the world program that we continue to produce All-Americans. We continue to produce guys that are going to the nationals every year. And, our goal is obviously to make sure that once you leave here, you leave with a great quality degree, great quality experience, and then live on to be a productive citizen. And then, Rusak was a star athlete here, did a lot of great things for the program. So it's just good that the university is recognizing his accomplishments, both on and off the mat. And, I know that Hall of Fame dinner, our team will be traveling down, but we certainly are proud of Jeff. obviously, just like any alumni, they're always welcome into our room at any point in time. And, hopefully, he can come in and speak to our guys and kind of just give them a little bit of inspiration.
He's also pretty vicious with the leg cradle. He actually, I think he pinned more people in college with the leg cradle than anybody in the sports history. But Jeff currently a firefighter in Virginia Beach, so he's still around locally, and also helps out with the Cox High School program, or at least the last time I checked. Because now he's got kids though, and his kids are freak athletes too. So keep an eye on them, Dixon, in a couple years, because his wife was a soccer player at Old Dominion, and Jeff, of course, was a freak wrestler. So these kids, I'm kidding. I'm not kidding you, dude. Bobby Wilder's going to need to take a look at these kids eventually too. So just keep that in mind about 10, 12 years down the line. So Coach Dixon, as we wrap up this episode, final thoughts for Monarch Nation as we head into, we got some fall football tailgates going on. We got, of course, the Day of Giving and the Intra Squad opening up. But anything else we want to touch on in this fall season?
No, just support us if you can on the Day of Giving. Like I said, any amount, no amount's too small. But this is our first year trying this out. And like I said, thanks to Cornell Wrestling as well as the ODU women's soccer program, so we're going to try out. We're going to see what we can do. Our goal is 200 gifts. So any gift is beneficial to our program. And if we can get 200 gifts, that helps show our administration that basically there are people here that support this program. There are people here that want this program to thrive.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.